kind of mentoring with, obviously. Like, I think all of you know Anne, and then some of you, like, she's your coworker. And so I wanted to really more focus on the message behind my LTI project, and that's kind of where I wanted to do this introduction. Here. So this is my project, Fashion versus Art. So this part of the presentation is going to be a commentary on the art space and culture. So let's start out. What is art? So I put a little definition down here. It's the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting, sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. So when we think of art, what first comes to mind normally tends to be what is considered fine art. So that is painting, sculpture, poetry, dance, theater. But I wanted to also kind of introduce these questions, kind of for us to think of throughout our presentation, and kind of as we walk through the topics. So what do we think of as art? Who do we think of as artists? And how is art marketed to us? What is fashion? So fashion is a form of self-expression and autonomy. At a particular period of time and place and in a specific context, it is the art of expressing your sense of beauty through clothes. So I think fashion in general, and I think this is very important to define, is different from, say, the fashion industry. And I wanted to make that kind of difference clear for you during this presentation, because the fashion industry itself, and that's why I chose this definition specifically, is the thing that's pushing trends, that's pushing styles. That's when you walk in, you see these like mannequins with certain things, and then they change weeks later. That I think of as the fashion industry is a business running specific types of things to be marketed towards you. Whereas fashion in and of itself could be even put on like the individual level or on my presentation, where it's not specifically about marketing or about trying to sell something, but just more about self-expression. And so these are my kind of core questions for this is, why don't we think of our clothing as art? What is the line between fashion and art? And how is fashion and clothing marketed to us? Okay, fine art versus applied art. And these are some of the reasons why I don't think societally we tend to think of applied art or fashion as fine art. And so one of the first points is fast fashion and the overcommodification of clothing. We all know brands like Shein or H&M could be considered one as well. Just all of these brands that pop out designs really, really quick, only for these clothes to be not made really well and only to be thrown out maybe months, weeks later. And this, I feel like, almost devalues how people see clothing and how people see fashion in general. It's kind of the way that I think of it, it's like AI art. That's a big thing that's happening right now, AI art, AI writing. But is that truly art when it's not come from a place of love and passion? It's more content to be pumped out and to be sold. And so that's why I don't therefore consider it art, and why I don't really consider fast fashion in and of itself, which is different from how someone may use these pieces. That could be considered art, but just in general, I think this is a big factor to why some people may think of it as different things. Femininity is a big thing in society, not on an individual level, but in society in general. People tend to devalue things that are traditionally feminine. And even though the fashion industry might be kind of considered a male-dominated industry pretty much up until now and into the modern setting, things like sewing, embroidery, lace making have all been traditionally feminine qualities that have been put down by kind of how we think of things, like versus, say, fine art. All European fine artists are all traditionally men. We don't think of the female artists who were doing things at this time. We think of people like Michelangelo, like Leonardo da Vinci, like all of those artists. We don't think of them. And then also classism is something that I wanted to talk on. You see stuff like this at these big fashion shows and these big fashion runways, but we don't ever think about what fashion is on an individual level. I use art in the way that I put myself together every single day. I match my eyeshadow to my clothing, and I use shape theory to determine what I wear and what looks best on my body. I would consider that art because I'd be doing the same thing if I was making a painting. And so I think that it's this dichotomy between, like, we always think of fashion that qualifies as art being this big thing that we could never reach. We'd have to put so much effort into reaching, when a lot of us do it in our day-to-day lives. So why? Why can't these two forms coexist within one another? Why do they have to be different? Why do we consider them different? That's kind of the message behind my project and what I really wanted to push forward with it. Okay, so now we're moving into the second part of my presentation, which is art within fashion. So kind of a look between two forms mixing into one medium, and really taking qualities from both styles and both techniques, like just kind of mixing it into one product that could be used as both. So this was kind of I'm calling it like the anatomy of my project. So these were some of the things I wanted to accomplish, especially when considering garment pieces, because that's what I wanted to work on specifically. So I had kind of these like 4 different parts that I would work. So eyewear, headwear, upper body garments, and lower body garments. These are the definitions underneath them. I really wanted for my collection to be well-rounded. I didn't want to do only shirts and only pants or only glasses. Like, I really wanted for there to be an item from each thing, as to then add variety. And then kind of moving on to my process of creation. And so some of my pieces are over there. They're not kind of the best set up, but you can kind of like see them. And we'll talk and look about them a bit more, but I want to talk about specifically my process of creating them. And so everything kind of has to start with a design. You have to sit down, you have to conceptualize what you want. I had a journal. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find it, so I can't show you anything from it. But I actually, I think all of these, I have designs where I sat down and I looked at the shape of them, or I looked at how I wanted to construct them, and I drew it down, and I like made little notes. Another person like, I want this to specifically go here, and this is how I'm going to do it. And so just thinking about how I'm going to make this happen and what I want from it. That's, I think, a big component. And then sourcing materials. This, I think, was my biggest roadblock in terms of challenges, because of course the Met makerspace in general doesn't have a big fashion department. A lot of it's more geared towards like screen printing and woodworking. And that's not kind of in the space, the sphere of like what I was doing. And so a lot of sourcing was finding ways of getting cost-effective like materials that were still in with my idea. And so it was kind of a lot of like trying to get stuff through makerspace funds, but then also going to thrift stores and buying stuff with my own money, because I was like, I know like I need to get bits and pieces, and I want to find something that's like really specific to what I want. But this was also probably the hardest thing, just on a basis of sometimes you can't find what you want, and sometimes you find what you want, but it takes forever to get it to. And so it was really towards like this kind of last month that I was able to get all of my materials together to finally begin really working on everything in tandem. And then crafting, so putting together things, so that's like sewing, sculpting, gluing. A lot of my projects incorporated kind of all 3 of these, and just a lot of trying to figure out how things will work. So I think like the CD skirt was probably one of the biggest challenges, because it's all made from paper clips. And those, if you've ever worked with them or they're not the most durable material, so it's very gentle, and I really had to like figure out a way to craft it where it would be structurally secure, but also not look like a pile of crap. So, and especially the tiering was a big component of that, because you can't just go from 4 CDs to 3 CDs. You have to like link them up in certain ways, and so that was a big part of crafting, was kind of like trial and error. This is kind of my trial and error part here, where it was like, oh, this didn't work, I'm gonna have to figure out another way to do this. And kind of sometimes you had to just like, you know what I mean? Like if something happens, you have to like continue on moving. Like you can't drop that momentum, you have to like keep it going. And then the final part of it, which we're going to touch on a little bit next, is the cataloging. So photography and like cleaning up those images and putting it into a place and a space where kind of everyone can see them, and it's kind of like a final project. Oh, and this is my photo evidence slide. So I am historically very, very bad at taking photos of my internship and what I'm doing and the process. And so this was the one part of my project that I remembered to do this for. And so I'm really proud of the fact that I remembered to take photos for this. So here's my photo evidence. Here's kind of where, like, this is part of my design conceptualizing phase where I had a bunch of these like lab glasses that Anne was gonna throw out. And so I was like, this would be a great idea to create like sunglasses out of them. And so this was kind of an extra pair that I had. I painted it both colors, and I was figuring out ways to get like the arms of the glasses. And so here's kind of like where I'm starting to craft. It's crafting. This is kind of like my finished product. Of course, like that's not the fully finished product because you'll see that later, like in the catalog. But that's when it was done. Speaking of the catalog, now we've reached the third part of my presentation, the catalog, my 2020 spring final exhibition. This is kind of what it's all been heading up to. Okay, so I actually have something for y'all.
Are we supposed to use the QR code on this or not yet?
Well, actually, I have.
Oh, it gets better.
With
It's
a
sweet.
QR code. So I picked fresh chocolate chip cookies. They're not like vegan or gluten free or anything, so please tell me if you have like any dietary needs. But on the back of them is a QR code. They might be a bit greasy, but so are all we. So, I'll go out and pass you that. If you don't want one, you can tell me. Just listen on the screen. But I made these yesterday, and I'm really like, not to brag, but I'm kind of like a good baker. So I did like a whole internship on it last semester. So.
She's so modest.
You're the most extra person Thank you. I did these all this morning too, by the way. I packaged them up. I was like brewing up a trick. You may have to download it because it's kind of a chunky PDF.
No, that's so bad.
But
It's worth it.
Oh, this is. I was in this.
yeah.
Oh, I know.
So some of our models are actually here today. Excel and Monty.
Also, it's like, okay, let's see.
So because I really made it a point, I really wanted to get models to model my project for me. I didn't want to just take pictures of them, just like still shots. I wanted this to be like a real thing. And so this is kind of my culmination, and also ties into my the whole part of like, how can I help the school? Like, what is that? So this is potentially a template for if someone or me ever wanted to start a school newspaper, or like to like bring in news and show off projects and things like that. Even the name is kind of tied in. If you see that, the name of the catalog.
What's the time? I don't get it.
Like before the Panthers.
Because when we met Panthers. Actually, funny thing though, Pantheria is the genus name for a lot of big cats, but Panthers aren't actually included in it. So that's kind of funny. But I was like, when you think about it, you'll know. But in the catalog, it kind of details my experience a bit more in like a written format. If you want to talk about like my messages, and, like, but these are actually edited too. I used my Tinkin Photoshop editing skills to tie that back in. But so yeah, that's. Thank you. Any questions or comments? That was my project. You can all applaud now.
So this is a reflection of all of your internship skills you've developed.
Actually,
It is. That's super
That
cool.
is
Should
lovely.
have saved it for your senior expo.
I know. Well, I was thinking,
Or
I was
they
like,
can
I can't
continue to
top
build
this.
on it.
Yeah.
This will be hard to top. I don't know what I'm gonna do next semester, but
Okay, I have a question.
yes.
How, in your opinion, do you feel like your projects and your 5 pieces connect with a community? And what community would they connect to?
Well, I think it connects to the artistic community, as a lot of my presentation kind of touched on that. And if you read a bit into my catalog and the written parts of it, I kind of talk a bit about like how I really wanted this project to be like specifically a doorway for people to really think and be like, hey, maybe something that most people don't consider traditional art is art to me, and I really want to further it, and I want to put a lot of effort into showing people my form of art. And I think that's kind of the community.
Can we start an art club magazine and have it be?
Oh my God, that's a
Definitely.
great idea.
Why am I thinking there's your project next year?
Right?
Well, I
Oh
was
my
actually
God.
thinking, I was like, well, okay, so this is my dilemma with next year's project. So, Mandara and I were talking, and she does have potentially something lined up for another hospital internship, because I'm doing one this summer. And so that would be really cool, because it's like a full rotation, like every month you change departments, and I'm like, that would be spectacular. But if that doesn't happen, because it's not really at its like full stages of it being a real thing, I would love to start like a Met newspaper, because that's like the one thing that we don't have. We have like ASB, we have GSA. I would love to start a Met newspaper and actually bring it to the level of something like this. Like not just a little print, I'm sorry, I'm pointing at phones.
Oh.
Like,
Like me?
Like a
Thank you.
magazine, like not those, you see like high school newspapers and it's more of like a printout and it's just very like, very simple and like, yeah, I would want it if we were to do a newspaper to be more about like looking,
Sorry, I invited my brother without permission. Just
to
sit.
be kind of looking into our community and maybe interviewing teachers or going to LTI sites and talking about what students are doing, or just like certain like ASB events, like kind of like a more of a newspapery type of magazine thing. So that's kind of like a potential thing that I could look into doing if the hospital thing kind of does fall out, because it is something that I'm a little bit passionate about, and I would love to follow up on that.
So would that be like a club that people at school could join?
Yeah, I would start it off probably more as an LTI project and then further it into a club like later on, because I wanted to get it started just as like, not to be a control freak, but like with my hands fully on it and to be like, this is how I want it to be. But then yes, later I would turn it into
Yes,
a
to
club
be a control
because
freak.
I would want to die out. Yes.
So you sort of just opened up my follow-up question. So first of all, just an appreciation for the work you're doing here and the creativity you have here. But I know firsthand how intentional you are about your creation and how you like to not let me see any of this
Oh
beforehand.
yeah, no, sorry.
No.
I forgot about
No,
that. That wasn't on purpose.
No, but I do know in your design process, when I ask questions or we talk about it, you're like, well, I have some ideas, but I'm not going to share them yet, right? and this isn't a knock, but you talked about if you want to create a newspaper or magazine, there's going to require a lot of collaboration, right? So is that something you're letting go of the control? Is that something you think you could easily transition into?
Okay. So I don't want to be automatically like, yes. But a big part of my struggle with giving over control, and I think you can see this in a lot of like school projects too. Is just the fact that sometimes I don't trust it's a very big like not to deep on any level, but like for me it's an area of like trust. Like, do I trust this person to be able to uphold my standard of work? Because it is different from certain people, and I do think that like if I were to be partnered with someone or people who I trust to be able, like, I know your quality of work is good, and I know that if you have a question or something that you're struggling with, you could come to me and ask for my help. Like, yes, I'm fully able to then give you the work that like share responsibilities. But say if it's like, someone who I'm like, no, I know you're not going to put your best foot forward, and not anything to that person, because it's like, no, you may be nice, but you're just not on my level of quality when it comes to work, and that's very important to me as a person, is the work I put out, because if I do have my name attached to something, I want it to be the best that it can be. And I just think I don't think it's like a bad quality to have, but I do think I tend to like turn it off with notches, so I
But it's good that you realize that about yourself.
Yeah, well, that's been a problem since like 5th grade. So this is not like a new thing. It's gotten better. Trust me, it's gotten better. Oh yeah.
I just want to say thank you so much for like letting me model. I was so honored, and the photos look great. You're a great Photoshop editor. And I don't know. I look forward to working with you in the future.
So we'll see. Yes.
So more about the process, again, because I was sort of boxed out on this project. I'm curious.
Okay, quick sidebar.
Wait,
You
wait.
seem so bitter about
I'm just
it.
sad. It's beautiful. I'm just so sad that I didn't. Because I would have loved it printed for everybody in advance, like if I knew, you know.
Oh well, yeah. I forgot.
They have
So-
the whole thing.
So,
you are
oh no, it's
Yeah,
The cookies!
Very
The
elegant.
cookies!
Project.
It's
like
beautiful.
pink on theirs.
Oh,
It's
I'm sorry.
beautiful. It's beautiful. But because I don't know this information, when did this come into fruition? When did creating a magazine come into fruition?
Oh, that's been there for the start. I told you about that.
Not necessarily a
Yes,
magazine.
no, okay. You came in, right? You came in for your little LTI, like, with Principal Fung. You were like, Salem, tell us about your thing. And I was like, yeah, well, here's what I have now. And at the end, I'm going to do a catalog / magazine. I have said that from the start. That was my goal. I've had this plan for months.
But this specifically, right? So
Oh, like a newspaper?
No. So
Or just a clarifier.
a catalog doesn't necessarily need to be a physical catalog, right? So I was under the assumption you were going to do. I saw this in the works. I didn't know a physical catalog was going to. So was that from the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was gonna edit that together. I was gonna do something. I mean, the written part was a bit like I wasn't sure I was gonna do that, and then I was like, no, I probably should just because sometimes when I talk, I can't be as like eloquent as I write, and so I really wanted to kind of put a little bit more extra information in a format that I have more control over. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I want to start out beautifully done. Very beautiful.
Okay.
I also want to honor your advisor because there are a few little things like you knew that this was going to be graded on a rubric, and I feel like even though you really wanted to like show how amazing you are, his guidance, without giving away too many secrets, could really like hit all of the points. But with that being stated, I'd love to hear more about how you were able to create this like meaningfulness with your pieces. It's beautiful, but I'm almost worried like we're the only audience that is gonna get to celebrate how awesome this is. So where are we going with like this? How is this gonna be meaningful to your target audience?
Well, first of all, I was going to actually post about this on Instagram later. So I need to, because coming back to the whole tailoredness, I want to create something very like specific to put out that like shows the piece, but also includes like the catalog. And I need to make a link for it because I finished this part of it, like the presentation thing, and actually like putting everything together. I finished that like last night because I was on the. I mean, like this stuff was. But then getting the models and taking the photos and editing the photos, that takes a bit of planning, and then stuff like Roblox happened where you're like, I was going to do it this day, but then stuff happened, I can't do it that way, so now my schedule is a bit messed up. But yeah, so I'm going to take the photos, and I have a specific kind of idea that I want to do with them for just like specifically, like focus more toward like an Instagram post. But yes, I'm going to post about it on Instagram and write a bit about it.
And I'd like to know how you're going to be able to catapult the makerspace and not just being what it is. And what role did your mentor play in helping to guide you?
Oh yeah, well, Anne supported me through this like entire process with getting materials and also just conceptual ideas of like how to get things done. Like a lot of like, especially like on the glasses and on the CDs, it was a lot of like talking like, hey, I don't know specifically how to do something because building's really not my forte. I know how to sew and I know how to embroider, but building things and putting things together, I don't really do a ton. So it was really great to have your help in kind of getting advice on like, hey, is this an idea think that we can do, and like how structurally could this turn out?
I want to say, I'm looking at the jacket with the eyeballs.
Oh yeah, my ball jacket.
And I know what they started at.
Oh.
And to go from their original form to that, I am completely blown away. And that kind of follows along with what Tabby said is, how can you show that that started as a ping pong ball?
Yeah.
And you would look at that and go, that is not a ping pong ball. And it just, it seems like there's such to show the before and after. To show that, like you did with the glasses, and I know I'm really bad at photographs too, so I get that. Even like showing in the catalog, adding some close-up photos. So that way people who are seeing that can actually see the detail of the eyeballs, the detail of the corset, of the lampshade. And I think if being able to show that up close and detail will really allow people to understand the amount of time and effort that you took in this, and they will understand like, whoa, and it will take them to that next level of blown away, just because you don't think of what's there and what it started out as.
I'd like to piggyback on that. Could you tell us a little bit of the timeline? How long did it take approximately per piece, and how many hours did you actually put into your whole project?
Yeah, well, I'll move over here so that I can like touch and uphold certain objects. So this was, I guess, all of these conceptually kind of came about around the same time, but this was the first, and there was another set of glasses, and I'll talk a bit more about the Roblox with these specific glasses a bit later on. But so this was kind of the first thing that I worked on were these glasses, because I got, like I said, the lab glasses kind of first. I pulled them out of the trash can, and I was like, ooh, they work great. And so I kind of began with, once again, like trying to source items. Luckily, Anne had kind of this like bucket of like ducks, and well, yeah, ducks, and then but then like disco balls, and just these like fun little items. I was like, I can use these. So it was kind of like putting together and kind of figuring out like, hey, how will the ducks sit? How will the ducks do this? But these probably, I wouldn't say they took the longest, because something else took the longest. But this took probably the second longest, just because it was the first thing I was doing, and I was kind of trying to find my ground. I don't know if you want like an approximate like hour mark. I could probably give you one, but these probably took around 12-ish hours to get done, because I was also working with another set of glasses, and I'll talk a bit on like, originally all of this was hot glued, but then when I was transporting it, all of this fell off, and I had to screw it back on. So that was a big struggle. It was one of those moments where it was like last week, and I was moving everything out of my internship to my house, and everything fell off of my trunk, and I were like, and so I had to pick all the pieces up out of my trunk. I had to like search under things, because I have a bunch of like tool stuff, or I don't know, like my dad uses my car sometimes. So it was just stuff, and I was like searching for buttons, kind of like praying that everything was there. Actually, if you kind of on adaptability, if you go back, there used to be a fourth blue duck that was lost in my trunk.
R.I.P.
And so I had to go, I was like sitting at the dining room table, and my mom can like confirm this, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, I'm missing a duck. So I kind of had to like go, okay, I can work with this, I can work with 3, and kind of like put it together. But that was definitely a big roadblock. Was a lot of this was, I don't do a ton of physical art. I'm traditionally, if we're talking just on an art front, I am a painter. I paint and I sketch like realism. So I'm not like a builder or really anything like where I'm like putting things together and working with stuff. And I was like, hot glue is gonna work for this, but it did not in fact work for this. And that was very unfortunate. But we worked past it, and the ducks are fine. So
Except for the blue one.
except for the blue one, he's lost to time now. He's gone. I don't know where he is. I'll find him like 10 years down the line. I was like, there you were. Okay. What did I do next? Then, okay. Was it you? No, it wasn't. It was you. This is the piece that took the longest, because originally it was a lampshade. It was a lampshade covered in burlap. And the burlap actually made me, I had to tear all the burlap off, it made me break out in hives. That was actually the day you guys came. All down my arms, I broke out in just like bubbles, and I was like, ooh, itchy. It was like, it got into my jeans too, so it was like all on my thighs. It was a very unpleasant experience. But all the burlap was then gone after that, and I actually had to, while I was cutting it off, because I was using an X-Acto knife, I was like taking it, I would like rip it off, and then I would like cut the parts because there's glue. Luckily, it's kind of an old lamp, so it wasn't the most like stable piece. So the burlap was kind of easy to rip off. There were parts where I had to tear the like fabric on the side, and if you look kind of closer, you can almost like see the marks of where that happened. But I did kind of fix that. I took Mod Podge to it and just like layered that a bunch, and I was like, it's gonna work, guys, it's gonna work. But the problem was when I got to painting, because I knew that I wanted this to be like a very like graphic thing where it's like all painted, like really detailed, fine line stuff. The material that lampshades are made out of does not paint well. This got coated with white twice, and it got coated with this purple color at least 3 times. So there's at least 5 coats of paint on this before I even did the yellow stuff. And every time I did any type of shape, I would have to layer the yellow paint at least 4 to 6 times. So it's all this thin line. I'm gonna stand in the middle, and you guys are all gonna look at this because I'm so proud of this. Look at all this fine line painting that I did. This is so symmetrical, and I had to layer it. My hands were cramping. I was like wearing my little wrist brace. I was really trying. It was hurting so bad. Sometimes I was like, I need to stop, but I needed to get it done. This took forever. This took more than 24 hours. Like, I'm not kidding you. Just painting one panel oftentimes took me like 4 hours to do. Like, it was a pain, but I'm so happy with how it turned out. Yeah.
I wanted to say, like, looking at it, I think the layers added that much more dimension and character to it. Like, you can see where the paint, like, seeped, like, in a good way.
Yeah,
not like it smudged or anything, but you can see the sort of layers of opacity, and it looks really cool.
Okay. These two I kind of worked in, like, kind of in tandem. Because it was at the point where I was kind of like getting things in and not having like all the things, so I was working like with different pieces. Painting these eyeballs took forever, but both of these took, I think, around the same time to complete. This one obviously took a bit. Actually, this took a bit less because painting the eyeballs took forever. All of these, they're hand painted. But the problem with them was that I had to let them dry at certain stages. So I would paint the eyeballs, and then I would have to wait, and then I want to do gold. Like, if you really look at them, if I like do this, it's kind of metallic. But gold paint obviously isn't super, like, it's not a thick paint, so I'd have to layer those a couple times. It was just like waiting. It was like waiting for them to dry, and so I was kind of working on this while working on this, and then coming back to this, and then I Mod Podged all of these, and Mod Podge, I don't know if you've ever worked with it, takes forever to dry. But this took a bit quicker just because there wasn't as much painting, and painting just takes time and effort. And this took time and effort too. But it's a lot of like, I actually drilled these CDs, and actually made me this little wooden thing where I could just like whoop, put the CDs into it just with a drill, go like wham, 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 wham. So that was super helpful. So I was like doing it by hand, marking out every single one. And so these I clipped together. I actually asked Miss Sylvia for a box of like 100 of the paper clips, and she's like, oh, of course, like, I love your presentation, I love your like project, and I was like, thank you so much. And so I got them done, and they were originally just like panels, like one panel of 4 and then one panel of 4, and I was like, this is gonna be great. I get a belt, and I got a belt, and I was like, how am I going to put it onto the belt? Because I tried gluing it, but gluing doesn't work on leather, and so I was sitting there kind of it was Friday. I was sitting there going, how am I going to get this on the belt? Rivets. That was the answer. These CDs are riveted on. It was actually my dad's idea. So shout out to him.
He's not in heaven, he's just in Utah.
Yeah, that was like, what happened?
What happened on the
Something happened
weekend?
between the beginning of this
No, but so he was
He
like,
keeps saying the trip is like the seventh circle of hell. So
Okay.
thanks,
Like,
Dad.
thank you, Deborah.
but these are actually all riveted on. So that was a really cool idea, and it did work. So they're
Sorry, excuse my ignorance. What is riveting?
okay. So a rivet, in very loose terms, is this thing that you put in to link another thing to a thing.
Whoa.
Okay, so
I'm
Cameron,
shocked.
campaigns have rivets.
Mind blowing.
They're the
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
the
so true.
things that
Yeah,
like these little silver or copper fasteners on all pairs of jeans. And then when you think of shoes and how they connect, like especially boots, they're connected by rivets.
Oh, okay. I
So
think
they
I
take
know what
one
you're
thing
talking about.
It's like a little
and
metal
then you, like,
post that you.
Little metal,
together.
like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
Hammers.
Okay.
Oh my god, look at bedazzler. That's like the perfect way to think of it.
Oh, now I understand.
Yay!
And then, so kind of moving on from
Thank you.
Oh,
this
sorry. That's
to the
I
jacket.
don't know how to
The jacket I actually got, shout out to the Met Closet. I got it from that closet. I sourced it. It doesn't actually fit me, and that's why I use Excel to model, because they were the only one that could fit it, because it's so, like, the shoulders are very tiny.
It was tight.
It was, yeah.
It was tight.
Anyways, so I painted all of the eyeballs, which were originally ping pong balls. I actually still have a ton of ping pong balls if you want them.
Yeah, bring them in. Someone else can source them.
Nice. And so I painted all of them because originally I was going to do something else with this. I was going to cover it, but then I realized, I don't have enough ping pong balls for that. And so I kind of had to think, like, what's another idea? And I was like, my friend E, who sadly can't be with us here today, had been talking about had been talking about biblically accurate angels.
Oh, not
And that's the
surprising.
inspiration. I was like, oh my god, you know, like with the crosses of the eyes and the big eyes, and especially with the addition of, if you see there's like a little bit of like ribbon around here, I was like, that's their own little like circles and stuff. This was probably the easiest to do out of all of them. Like, I'm not kidding with you. Something about this was so much easier, except for the sewing of the balls onto the jacket. So a ping pong ball is a round spherical plastic ball, as many of you know. You can't use a straight needle to get into the ping pong ball to get it out. So what I did was I sacrificed one of my pins.
Another
One of
one.
my pins, as in like the like for tacking fabric together. If you're going to like put two pieces together before you sew it, you guys all know what a pin is, right? Yeah. Sorry. I used one of my pins and I popped holes in either side, and then I used a curved needle to sew them. But I'm not sure if you guys have ever worked with a curved needle, because it sucks.
So hard. It looks like a fishing hook.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
It is so difficult. I was like, this is gonna be easy, guys. I'm just gonna go in. Because you still have to sit there and you have to like line it up, and then once you get it in, you have to like pull it out, and then sewing it onto the fabric was even harder. And so that was probably the biggest struggle with this, was just figuring out how to use a curved needle and not like wake myself multiple times. What am I forgetting?
Behind you.
This is the bug corset. It has bugs on it. I'm gonna take it down so then y'all can see it, because there's bugs on the back too. Bugs on the back.
Oh,
So I knew from the start, from the very beginning. Like, I don't even beginning as in like the beginning of my internship. I mean like the beginning of when like I asked Anne to be in the makerspace. I knew I wanted to do a corset. I was dead set on it. I was dead set on it. To what I wanted to do for the corset went through many, many alterations. So originally the corset, I really wanted to do a piece with glass, which then turned into plexiglass, because apparently using glass is dangerous. And so, I'm not sure if you guys have a
Corset.
And so, I don't know if you guys have ever seen, but those like wind chimes where they're made from like recycled glass and they like shine so pretty, and I wanted to have like little hanging down things. But plexiglass is unreasonably expensive, especially colored plexiglass, which is the type of plexiglass I wanted to use. I didn't want to just be like white plexiglass, or clear, I guess. And so I was like, I can't do that. It's really expensive, and I don't have the money, and I don't think the makerspace has the money. It's like I'm not kidding. Like one paint is like $40. Like it's extensive. Like, it's a lot. Like, you wouldn't think so, but it is. And then I was thinking game pieces. That could be really interesting, and I know Anne has some, and so I took some game pieces, but as I was kind of sitting there, like, playing around with them and putting them out, I was like, this just doesn't have the vibe. Like, I just can't imagine wearing this. It just doesn't look good. It looks clunky. And so I was thinking, and I was like, bugs. So actually, what inspired this is I live in Santee, which is a little bit rural. And so in the summertime, when it gets really hot, the bugs very much enjoy to crawl into my air-conditioned room. And so I've been dealing with so many bugs as of late. And I was like, oh my God, they terrify me, but they also inspire me. And so by hand, I'm gonna kind of wheel these around. It is missing a worm because Monty destroyed it. I'm sorry. No, that's not your fault. That was a joke. But I sculpted all of these bugs by hand. They're actually made with EVA foam, which I'm not sure if you've ever used EVA foam, but it's like if a softer foam became kind of like a clay. Oh, it's EVA foam clay. So it kind of allows you to make and create things while they are also like very lightweight.
We're gonna lose another worm. Yeah, on your Coraline door, you had the.
Oh my God.
I thought those were those.
I
'Cause I have
actually
some of it.
never saw the inside of your door. I saw the outside of the Coraline door. I've never seen the inside because I didn't have you for that year. So.
You mean this year?
Yes. But yeah, so I sculpted all of these bugs, and then I was looking at bug references, and I was kind of wincing looking at the bug references. I was like, no, but it's for the arts.
Beauty is pain.
And so I finished all the bugs. I set the bugs dry. Also, the nice thing about EVA foam is it like dries in like less than 24 hours. And so I was like, and then I spray painted all the bugs gold. My hands were like covered in because they're foam, so you can't just like get. You have to. Sorry, that was a weird noise.
That was perfect. I love it.
So I had to hold the bug and just like spray it and then flip it over and spray it. So like this entire part of my hand was just gold for the entire day, and then it was later black because I spray painted the end of this black. So it was just I've been covered in paint as of late. But yeah, so that kind of covers all of my process. All of this together took too many hours for me to count. Yes, Leah.
I'm sorry to ask one more question.
Yeah.
Do you have like a favorite piece? Or like the thing that you enjoyed working on the most?
This is my favorite piece. Not the one I enjoyed working on the most though. This sucked, but it's gratifying by the end and I really like it. Maybe it's just because of how much pain I went through to get this thing done. Also, second, followed up by this. I love this a lot. It's such a shame that I can't wear it. Because I've
I
tried.
agree. You could probably like alter it in some way, no? Just
I
add
could.
more shoulder.
No, I could, but that would take too much effort, and I don't feel like extending myself that.
No,
I already did all of this. I'm not doing any of
If you could split that, make it a corset back, maybe add some wings to really expand.
Yeah.
That would be
Next
so-
internship
Yeah,
project.
yeah, definitely. But I think my favorite to create this. I don't sculpt enough, but it's a secret passion of mine because I just
Guilty
love sculpting.
pleasure.
It's a step. It's probably a step up from painting realism is like making it. And I really like it, but clay is very expensive, and I also don't have a kiln, so I can't do like proper clay. I'd have to get like air dry stuff, which is just like that's always hit and miss for me. Sometimes there's really good air dry clay brands, and if y'all have any recommendations,
What's that polymer clay that you can?
Right, isn't it polymer? You can like put it in the oven.
You put it in the oven. We should talk. I
We
have
should
some.
yes, because I love sculpting. I think it's really fun. I like getting my hands on this. Anyways, so yes, that was all my things. Any more questions?
Just a celebration. Thank you
Absolutely.
for going through each and every single one of those. I got to mark so much more on the rubric because you took the time to explain the process of each of those. And I don't think that you celebrated how hard that you worked on this. This wasn't just like maybe I'll do this and I'll just take some junk here and throw it on here and then we'll make it pretty because the colors. No, like you can't paint in every single eyeball. And then so the one with a curved needle. So thank you for going through that, and I appreciate your art very much and your fashion.
Thank you. I worked so hard on it.
You can really see your artist voice.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, I remember when that corset was supposed to be a porcelain corset, and I was like, oh my god, that's so cool. And I love how it's like morphed into this like really cool creation. It's really awesome.
We'll actually talk a little bit about that on my catalog if you guys want. I'm sorry if it didn't work. The problem, I think, that it didn't work is the fact that it's more than, okay, you know when you like download something onto your computer and it gives you the little like the unit of the big ones? It's like 20 of those. It's really big. Like the quality and like the amount that you have to download. Megabyte. No, it's like MK or something. I don't know. It's like
Are you referring to your catalog?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason
The
why
size of the document.
the size of the
digitally.
document is humongous, and so if that's probably why I'm working on a link. I don't have one yet, but I'm working on a link, so I'll let you guys know about it when I do. Because I finally like finished the catalog last night, so I'm always on the go with these things, but that's okay. I think it turned out really well. And I did finish it last night, but not without like forethought before. It's just I finally put like the finishing touches on it. Like I think that's very important to like clarify. It's like this was not like I didn't just like throw it all together last night and be like, hey, it's done. Like I mean like I just finished it. Yeah.
Other
That was
questions?
my thing.
Yay!
Well done, Salem.
Uh,
Incredible.